So, really lovely to see you. Your life has changed rather dramatically, hasn't it? How are you dealing with all this, Grammys and Brits, the profile and everything? Is that easy to deal with right now?
I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds pretty crazy. But I don't know. I mean, I get very excited, obviously, for the recognition, especially for something like the Grammys, to be a British artist and to know that people are listening to my songs over there, and that people are coming to the shows and they know my name, and it means a lot to me. How does it feel? I mean, I think if every time you say it feels crazier, but I feel like my work life has changed a lot, but my personal life is still the same. I have, my friends and family, like, they keep me so grounded, and to them I'm just me, so it's all pretty normal at home, which is really nice. And then, I mean, I think that the one thing that I'm so grateful for is that it kind of opens so many doors for me to be able to work with so many other people that I love, and I get to be a bit more experimental, and I get to try out new things, which is always very exciting.
Is there anything in particular? I mean, obviously you've recorded for the film, haven't you? Swanson, the amazing video.
Yeah, thank you.
Very filmic. So are you going to be doing some film work as well? You've done a little bit, have you? So.
I mean, music's really my only love at the moment, and it's the only thing that I want to focus on. Doing acting would be fun at some point, but I've got no plans for it at the moment. I really just want to focus on putting out music and touring and developing my live show, and kind of seeing that grow has been such an exciting part for me. Just kind of thinking back to, all the London shows that I've done, and getting to finally perform at Ali Pali, and now thinking about possibly doing arenas for the next album is pretty surreal and exciting for me. So my mind's only focused on that.
It's interesting that it's always been the way that for artists there's this idea about breaking America. Is that still the case? That's seen as a very important step along the way to success?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like I said, being British and having your music heard over in the States is quite a big deal. At least it is for me, because it gives me so much opportunity to be able to tour there, and not only just in America, but to be able to go over to Australia and New Zealand and go to Asia and South America, and it just opens so many doors to be able to tour worldwide.
You're a record breaker when it comes to streaming, which is very much kind of the music industry now.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got quite a young fan base. What do they mean to you, your young fans, particularly the young women? Because you are an icon for young women, aren't you?
When I think of it, and what I would like to say to my younger audience is that no matter what you decide to put your mind to, you should always work really hard for it. Always believe in yourself, because one thing that I know is I always had to believe in myself first before anybody else. And that was the one thing that I felt really carried me and helped me build my confidence, and really helped me learn who I am as an artist and as a person. And I feel like, so many people go, oh, you're such a role model for young women. And at the same time, as much as I have, young fans, I also have young girls that are also the same age as I am. And being a role model, for me, I will do, whatever is in my ability to be able to kind of do what's right. But at the same time, I'm also learning, and I'm not perfect. And I think that's also something really important for them to remember, that we're allowed to make mistakes and be ourselves and be young, but at the same time try and set a good example, or as well as you can. And I try to do that for my younger siblings. And so I kind of take that kind of mentality into what I do.
You're in an interesting position, because when you say things, there's a lot of people that listen, and there's a lot of reaction, and you start a lot of debate. And I think you've been saying some really interesting things recently, particularly about women in the industry. But I'd like to ask you about the point you made about how we are to each other. I mean, I've just come back from the Oscars, where it's just been Me Too, equality, you know, women sticking together.
Yeah.
But that's not the full story, is it? It's a bit fragmentary, and if you go online, we are letting ourselves down slightly, aren't we?
Well, it feels like, you know, out in the open we're very much pro-women, you know, supporting each other, looking after each other, sisterhood, you know, all this stuff. And then there's kind of a darker side when you go on social media, and it feels like the same people that are preaching for all this equality and looking after each other, and it doesn't feel so equal online. It always feels like because people can hide behind a computer screen, they can also say whatever they want. And I think that's one of the points that I want to keep making, is that if you say something, you should believe it. And if you do feel like we should be looking after each other, then do it. And we shouldn't be comparing each other. And it feels like for men, getting older in an industry is celebrated, whereas for women, we're instantly being put down, or surely she can't be still doing pop music because she's getting older, or, you know, whatever the I guess the dialogue is. But it's quite upsetting, because why can't we? As a you know, as a female artist, or in general for all female artists, when we start something in our careers, we want to have longevity, and we don't want the reason of us aging to be the reason we stop working or people stop being interested in us. We still create very interesting things. We still have a lot to say. We still have a lot to bring to the table. But why is it so different for us? And I think it's a lot to do with the conversations that are still being made on social media and being made online, and those aren't allowing us to grow and aren't allowing us to be ourselves. Whereas we portray that very much so when we're speaking, you know, in front of a camera. It's as if like me coming out, you know, now and being like, you know, I support women and I'm doing this, but then I go on social media and I'm talking about or comparing two women against each other, or why one isn't better than the other, or, you know, that kind of thing. It's very hypocritical. And so it's trying to kind of get away from that.
Have people been unpleasant to you on social media?
It comes and goes. I think as a pop artist, I guess, given the kind of long line of artists that kind of get up and do all the dances and things, I'm very much more free in terms of that, where when I get up on stage, I do what I feel, I dance the way I feel like just my body moves, and I like to perform in different ways. I kind of find myself doing head banging and throwing kicks and jumping up and down rather than having like a set choreography. I feel like for me that's way more organic, and I think it's kind of that thing online where everybody's very protective over their pop stars, and so other fan bases are like, well, why are we supporting her when we have another artist who can dance better than her or can do this? And I'm like, at the same time, I bring something different to the table, and that's me, and I'm confident in myself that I know that I can do it. And as much as people have so many words they can say it, that's the one thing that I kind of relayed back to it, is you always have to believe in yourself before anybody else, because that's the one thing that's always going to push you and your confidence and move you forwards. And I think that's, for any young girls, people, I guess, going to champion you until you get to where you want to be, and then people are going to try and bring you down, or bring you down a couple pegs. But I think you have to remember that, you know, hard work and your dedication and your passion for what you do got you to where you want to be, and no one can take that away from you.
What would you say to your young fans? I mean, obviously billions of young people are on social media. You've got a very heavy social media presence, a lot of followers, and we're hearing constantly about how toxic social media can be, how more young women are suffering the traits of depression and mental health, anxiety, and some people are saying it's down to social media. What words of caution would you offer then to people who are on social media and believing everything and being affected by what they're reading?
I think it's really important to kind of do what works for you. Personally, I like to do it all in bite sizes. You know, go in, show my fans that, you know, how much they mean to me and how important they are, or, you know, update my family and show what I'm up to, or post it for my friends so they know, or even for myself, like, everything I do is really like, I like this, I'm going to post it. But I think if you spend too much time kind of diving in, looking for comments, I think we as humans, we're quite self-destructive, so we kind of go in looking for comments that that don't necessarily make us happy. And so it's kind of just doing it in bite sizes, doing it for the right reasons, you know, posting something because you love it, but don't spend too much time, or don't allow the opinions of others to dictate how you feel about yourself, which I think is the downfall. And what we're doing is the amount of likes is really giving us the validation of who we are or how we feel about ourselves, and it's learning to take a step back from that and do it because you want to do it regardless of, you know, people's reaction. It's like, this is how I feel, I like how I look today I feel good about myself, and I'm going to post about it. And one thing we also have to remember is a lot of social media is all the positives, you know, going on, and you go on people's profiles and you see everybody like, oh, you know, they just look so happy, or they have the perfect life, or everything's going so well, and, you know, nobody really posts the bad stuff, or when they're having a bad day, or when something's going wrong, or, you know, something's not going the way they should. And slowly you're starting to see, and at least I'm seeing it in some of my, like, female peers, where they're kind of coming out and being like, this, you know, this was a period in my life that made me really upset. And I found that really empowering, because I also felt like, oh, I can also talk about something that made me unhappy, or show your fans and the people around and your, you know, your friends and your family that it's okay to not be okay sometimes.
And do you think people who have a very big profile then should be doing more of that?
Absolutely. Just being able to just, you know, be yourself. Also that whole thing of, sometimes I post a picture and I'm not wearing any makeup on, and the comments are like, are you okay? Are you feeling well? Are you drinking enough water? You look really tired. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm fine. I'm just not wearing any makeup. And that's okay. And I think it's that kind of thing where showing that you're human is really important.
I was going to say, you posted that picture of yourself not wearing any makeup. It was all over the papers. So
oh, it was. I didn't see, but it doesn't surprise me.
Why did you do that?
Because that's just me, you know. I just woken up, I'm going to the studio, that's what I look like, and I don't want to have that kind of fear because I'm in the public eye that I can't leave my house not wearing makeup just in case I bump into someone or I have to take a photo. But it's just me, and that's just, you know, I don't want to have that kind of feeling. I want to be able to leave my house and be confident, or, you know, have breakouts and be okay with it, and not feel like I have to constantly cover myself up or do something different just because people might know who I am, you know. And I think it makes me feel more confident in myself when I feel okay to leave the house like that.
And I guess you think it's important for young people to see you like that, so there's a reality check, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's kind of, I think we're living in this world of, you know, a lot of makeup and dressing up, and I love that. I think that's great, but it's also being able to do it when you want to do it, and taking power in, I'm doing this because I like it, and not because somebody else, or you feel like you have to because of, you know, the outside world. I think that's the message that I want to put out. It's just do what you want to do because you want to do it.
You got a lot of credit for when you accepted one of your Grammys and you made that little subtle statement that meant an awful lot to lots of women in the music industry. Why did you think it was important for you to say that?
Well, when I got nominated, I was so taken back by, first of all, I was so honoured and grateful to have been nominated, but also the fact that I had already seen such a change just in the Best New Artist category, that it was predominantly women. And it felt like I was part of the change, and it felt like I was a part of this kind of new era, if you will, and more women being given all this recognition. And given what happened the year before, and I know Neil Portnam even came up and spoke about it and kind of apologized for what he had said when he had said it, but it was still something that, you know, in a time when so many women were doing so much, it felt like we weren't being given the recognition, and we weren't being, you know, looked out for, really. And this year felt a little bit different, and it felt really good to just be nominated alongside so many artists that I love and I listen to and I think are so cool, and you know, give out so many incredible messages. And I feel like it just felt good and it just felt right, and that's just what happened.
Do you think that women have to try a lot harder in the music industry than men?
Absolutely. I feel like, and I've said this before, if you're not a female artist that's by a piano or by a guitar, people are instantly going to think you're manufactured, or you don't write your own songs, or you don't make your own music. And I feel like we have to spend a lot more time kind of proving to the world that this is us, this is our songs, these are, you know, our lyrics, these mean so much to us, and it's kind of taken on differently. I feel like we have to work a little bit harder, but at the same time, I think it you know, we haven't necessarily quite yet progressed to the part where people are like, of course she writes her own stuff. So for us to work a little harder to get that recognition is fine. I think we're good on that. We're happy to do it, and then one day when people find out, we're like, but I told you all along.
Do you think people just make a judgment? They look at you and you're this beautiful, successful young woman, and you know, of course she doesn't write her own stuff.
I think people just like to see women in a different light, and don't necessarily give us the benefit of the doubt. Or we just have to do a lot of interviews and a lot of persuading to really show that that's what we do. And I think that's why, you know, I also take to the whole thing of being honest in my music, because I have to tell my stories, because I have to back up my songs with that. I have to be like, well, this song came from this situation, this happened in my life, this is why I wrote it. Because otherwise, if I just kind of go into the studio and I write fiction, although it's my words, if I don't have the story to back it up with, no one's going to believe it. And I think that's also a big part of my songwriting as well, and why I feel like I do it the way I do.
Your life stories is really it's really fascinating, your background. How much does your background, your parents from, you know, Kosovan, I mean, how much does that inform who you are and how you approach life?
It's a very big part of who I am. Being from two places at once, I feel like I represent both Kosovo and I feel like the UK at the same time. I've seen my parents work my whole life. I've seen them, you know, go to work during the day, go to university in the evening, you know, take us to school, be parents, be there for us at the same time, get an education, working multiple jobs. I've seen them, you know, kind of adapt to whatever was thrown at them, and at the same time make us feel like we weren't missing out on anything. And I think watching them work so hard has been so ingrained on me that I'm, I guess, a little bit of a workaholic. I feel like I can't stop until I get what I want, or I am where I want to be. And I actually thank my parents for that, because they've always told me that you have to work really hard to get a little bit of luck, and you make your own luck. And that's the best advice that I think I've ever been given.
They came over here. They were escaping the war in the Balkans.
Yep.
So they came here sort of seeking sanctuary to a certain extent, and a lot of people are still getting away from war zones and seeking sanctuary. You must have your own particular view on kind of refugees who are trying to be safe.
Yeah, well, you know, one thing I've realised is nobody leaves their home unless they have to. And it's for the sake of, you know, their family, of, you know, being safe, and seeing the opportunities that I've been given, that I've actually been so fortunate that's come out of something quite upsetting and quite dark, and something that I didn't really understand until I went back to Kosovo and I made friends and I understood a little bit more about, you know, how many lives were lost and what really happened during the war and how upsetting it was. And seeing the refugee situation at the moment makes me quite upset, and especially you know, everything to do with Brexit, just because I feel like young kids from all over the world won't have the same opportunities that I did, that I was so fortunate to have, to be born in London, to, you know, get an education here, and for me to stay in London and be like, oh, I have to be here because this is where everything is happening. And I know it's a little bit different now, especially in music with, like you said, the streaming services and how that's kind of changed the world and changed music as of now and today. That's given people from all over the world opportunities to be heard. I still think there's something about we as people have to be so much more accepting and understand the struggle and understand in whatever way we can the stresses and everything that comes with, you know, coming from an immigrant family and not having those same opportunities but wanting them, but being talented and having, you know, all the passion and the drive, but not having the resources or the like, I can't find the word, but basically just not being in a place where everything is happening to give you that chance. And yeah, it's just really sad.
What I do think is really amazing is yourself and your father giving back, if you like, you know, by organising this festival. What is the thinking behind that?
Well, it was, I went back a few years ago, and because I was touring all over Europe, I was like, I have to go back to Kosovo and I have to do a show in Pristina. And like I said, like, I feel like I'm just as much from Pristina as I am from London. And my dad was the one who kind of helped me put together this show, and it went really well, but it didn't feel right to take money from, you know, a place that has given me so much, but also doesn't have that much money to give. And so it was a way to be able to charge a small fee, but put it into a foundation, which we created, called Sunny Hill Foundation, which was giving back to the youth of Kosovo. And it was giving back to lots of different charities and lots of smaller festivals all around Kosovo, to be able to kind of allow those people that don't have the basically give those people the resources that they deserve and that they need to be able to go forward in you know, whatever they feel is closest to their heart. But at the same time realizing that, you know, as much as people, you know, we should give money towards young children to not raise their ability in creative arts, but also the fact that there's a need for money for food and for homes and clothes, and it's being able to give back in that aspect too. So we're trying to kind of not just have a foundation and a charity that only helps kids in the creative field, but in all aspects, just so they can better themselves, that no matter what they do, we're trying to give a little helping hand to give them those possibilities.
It's also about the healing of Kosovo to a certain extent, isn't it? You're changing the perceptions of the country. Your father has said that quite eloquently.
Well, for the festival, I feel like, you know, whenever anybody says anything about Kosovo, it's instantly about the war. And of course, that's a big part of our history, and that's not to try and take away from, you know, what our country has been through, but it's also about shedding a new light on it and showing, you know, we're trying to bring in more tourism. We want to bring more people in to come and see, because there is so much beauty in Kosovo, and it's just like what we feel like our little key of bringing people in, for them to kind of stay for a little longer and explore the city and the country a bit more. And yeah, so we went from doing that one headline show into doing a festival, and it was our first year last year. And it went really well, and we had Martin Garrix's headline, and we had Action Bronson and I headline one night, and we had amazing artists like Grace Carter and Coltrane and S.G. Lewis, and it was just, we had lots of friends that came down to help us, which was the best part of it, because, you know, we, as a festival, we don't have very much money, everything's for charity, so it's trying to it's really pulling a lot of favours with our friends who are also helpful to come down and help us out. And it went so well that we're doing it again this year. And hopefully for many years to come. And hopefully more people find out about Kosovo, more people come and visit it, it brings more tourism. The artists that have come and performed for the festival, they're like, I want to come back again next year, which shows us that they liked it and it was good fun. And we want to do more of it. And it's just trying to make a small difference and give back to a community that's given me so much.
What I found really incredible, I was reading about, is that Rita Ora's from Kosovo.
Yes, Rita Ora and Action Bronson and BB Rex is from Albania, and we have so much. Erai Strefi is from Kosovo. There's so much talent, and I think that's another reason. We just want to be heard. So the more people I can send out to Kosovo, maybe more of them can come over here. It's all about kind of discovering all this talent, and there's a lot going on.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah,
there's
a lot going on.
And
so everyone needs to come down to Kosovo and come find out and see what's happening.
Would you say that it's? We were just chatting actually before you came in about the stabbings that are going on all over the UK. Well, not that's an exaggeration, but it's scary. It seems to be quite hard to be a young person in the UK right now. I mean, what are your particular thoughts on that? I mean, obviously it's very disturbing and upsetting, but also slightly inexplicable, is it? Or?
I mean, it's for me, it's scary enough because I have younger siblings as well, and it's like constantly growing up in the hustle and bustle of London. You can never be too safe, but at the same time, living your life in fear isn't the way that we should be. It's allowing our faith to be greater than that, and to look after our friends and our family, and to make sure that your circle and the people that you do go out with at night or during the day, you're constantly, making sure that you have their backs and they're there and you look after each other. And that's, there's bad things happen all the time. And the only way that we can try and combat that is by looking after each other and making sure that at all times people know where you are and what you're doing, and whether you get in a cab, as long as somebody knows that you're on the way, or whatever happens, it's just being able to do small little things to keep yourself a little safer and the people around you as well.
We talked a bit about the streaming. I mean, that's sort of the world of millennials and streaming.
Yeah.
Do you think that the time is coming where there won't be such a thing as albums, because you don't need to make albums?
That's my worst nightmare, because I've grown up listening to my favourite artists and buying their albums and listening to it from the first song to the last song. It's always been such an important thing for me, and during my whole kind of journey I've always been like, I just need to have my album. And although I feel like streaming is really changing that, there's always, I think, for all the fans, it's having that physical thing, something that you can hold and you can touch, is still worth so much, especially to music fans like myself. There's nothing quite like going to the store and buying the CD or buying the vinyl, which I think is a lot cooler now to have. I think everybody wants a vinyl. But I think, a lot of people thought, CDs and albums and hard copies, that vinyls would also die. But they've actually prevailed and actually stayed. They've become like a collector's item. And I think it's really fun to play something off a vinyl and listen to it. And I think the same will be, on a CD. People are even bringing out little cassette tapes, and I'm like, who even has a cassette player? But it's still that fans love the feeling of having something. I love having a physical copy, and I love being able to learn about an artist's journey through more songs than just the single. Through that learning, I feel like to learn a lot about an artist, you need an album, you need the full thing. And I think as an artist, you also owe it to your fans to give them that.
So you're in the process of making your next album. How's it all going?
It's going really well. I think I'm nearly done, which is really exciting and scary at the same time. but it's fun. This whole process, I think, when I kept thinking about it, I know that everybody's like, the second album is always kind of the hardest album. But I've tried to kind of take my mind away from that and just have fun with it, you know? People are just constantly releasing songs and releasing music. It's just like, this is the body of work where I just want to show this is what I love, this is what I do. And you can just constantly keep putting stuff out. And it's got to be fun. You can't be too stressed about it. You can't kind of get yourself in this vicious cycle of like, oh, will this go on the radio? Will this be, you know? So it's all about just being proud of what you put your name to, and that's kind of just what I'm doing.
And you're lucky you get to work with some amazing people, don't you? Like Mark Ronson and...
Yeah, I mean, actually, me and Mark haven't had the chance to get in the studio for this album, although we've been like talking about it all the time, but he's someone who I absolutely love, and I love working with, and working with him on Electricity alongside Diplo was such an amazing experience and so much fun. I have been in the studio with Calvin, which we've done a couple songs, but he still hasn't sent them to me, so I'm waiting to hear them. Like, we got very
last
excited.
collaboration went very well, didn't
we were
it?
very excited in the studio, but I'm one to not believe the hype until I actually hear it myself again. So
when you
I'm saying it on the news, so if he sees this, he'll send it to me.
When you hear that, you know, One Kiss has been streamed more than 1.5 billion times,
My goodness.
that's slightly mind-blowing.
You're the first person to have told me that, so I'm like, oh my God. It is mind-blown. It's crazy, and it's, it was one of those songs where I know when we did it, I was like, I constantly kept listening to it, and before it came out, I was like, I just don't know if people are going to get it. I don't know if people are going to get it, and it was also, it's kind of that nervous, exciting, anxious butterfly feeling that you get before you put something out, and I think you only get those feelings when you really believe in something and you really want other people to feel the same way about it as you do. So I'm excited that they did, and I'm grateful that they did, and we got a Brit for it, which is pretty cool.
Brit winner, Grammy Award winner. So go on then. Who would you really like to work with? Who would be your ultimate dream to work with, to be on a stage with?
Oh my God, there's so many artists I love. I mean, Pink, Alicia Keys. I want to work with Frank Ocean. I'd love to do a song with Andre 3000. I mean, the list is endless. There are so many artists that I love and admire that always bring something different to the table. That, you know, it's yeah. I don't know. Sometimes the journey surprises me every time. So, who knows? We'll see.